1, 2, 3.
A very warm good evening and namaste from New Delhi. I'm Nilza Wangmo, the MC for today's program. On behalf of the International Buddhist Confederation, IBC, I'd like to welcome you all to Dhamma Talk 13, which is a part of our ongoing fortnightly program, International Dhamma Talk Series, that commenced on 19th of November 2021. Today, we're very happy and honored to have with us our teacher, Venerable Geshe Dorji Damdul, Director at Tibet House, Cultural Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, New Delhi. Geshe would be teaching on the topic, Buddhist Psychology for Healing the Stressful Mind in the Digital Age. So with this, I'd like to request Venerable Dr. Dhamma PhD, Secretary General IBC, to kindly welcome our teacher. Venerable Dr. Dhamma PhD.
Yes, a very good evening to most Venerable Geshe Damdul ji. I happen to be in Hanoi, Vietnam, and in a moving car now. So I take this opportunity to welcome the speaker, most Venerable Geshe Damdul ji, and also all the participants and listeners on this special occasion. We all look forward to listen to most revered Geshe ji. The topic is also very important and very interesting. When the world is undergoing through stress and strain, everywhere violence and vicissitudes of life. So how the mind can be healed, especially in the digital era. It's a very important topic. I welcome you all, and I would request most Venerable, please take the floor, kindly, please.
Thank you so much, the most Venerable Dr. Dhamma PhD, and also thank you, Dr. Nilza Wangmo. Thank you all from IBC. It is a great honor for me indeed.
Geshe, I'm really sorry to interrupt. Geshe, I think I missed your reading your bio. I'm really sorry. So
no problem.
Sorry, my apologies. So I'd like to read Geshe-la's bio before Geshe-la starts. I'm really sorry to interrupt. For the viewers, Venerable Geshe Dorji Damdul is presently Director at Tibet House, New Delhi, Cultural Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In 1988, Geshe Dorji Damdul joined the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics, Dharamsala, for formal studies in Buddhist logic, philosophy, and epistemology. After 15 years of study in Buddhist philosophy, he finished his Geshe Laramba degree, equivalent to a PhD, in 2002 from Dripung Losling Monastic University. He joined Gyudmit Tantric College for a year for Tantric studies. In 2003, the Office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama sent him to Cambridge University, England, for proficiency English studies. He was a visiting fellow at Girton College, Cambridge University. He is appointed as the official translator to His Holiness the Dalai Lama since 2005. He has been serving as the interpreter for His Holiness the Dalai Lama for many years, and at the same time involved in doing written translations of many texts from Tibetan into English, such as Arya Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamika Karika, Fundamental Wisdom of the Middle Way, Acharya Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, Wisdom Chapter. He was appointed as the Director of Tibet House, Cultural Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, New Delhi in March 2011. As assigned by the Office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he visited the US in 2008 to work with Professor Paul Ekman, a world-renowned psychologist, one of the pioneers of the science of microfacial expressions, on His Holiness the Dalai Lama's book, Emotional Awareness, which is co-authored by Dr. Paul Ekman of the University of California Medical School. His Holiness the Dalai Lama also assigned him with a textbook project. He was one of the chief editors for the textbook on Buddhist science and philosophy. This textbook is to be used for centers and institutes all over the world to study more thoroughly on Buddhist philosophy, metaphysics, epistemology, and science. He was also assigned, along with few other scholars, to work on His Holiness the Dalai Lama's book, Ethics for the New Millennium, Part 2, later came up with the title Beyond Religion, and the series of Art of Happiness book, which were jointly written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Professor Howard Cutler. Likewise, he is actively involved in critical editing works with other books of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, like The Graded Path. He was affiliated with Drupal Losling Library, where he served as the editor of Jeloma magazine for 8 years, from 1994 to 2001. Prior to that, he was the editor and contributor for 5 years for Laksam Tsekpa, a journal of comparative studies, the theme of which is on modern science and philosophy, published by the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics. He wrote a number of important papers for national and international conferences held in Delhi University and so forth. The paper constitute topics such as the paradox of mind and brain and the ultimate reality according to Arya Nagarjuna. He is in the process of writing 2 important books, one on journey into the paradox of brain and mind, and the other, what constitutes the ultimate reality, the effects of understanding the ultimate reality. In 2000, from 4 to 5, for 2 years, he was assigned as the philosophy lecturer for the Emory University Study Abroad program, which was being held in Dharamsala, India since 2001. In 2008, he was appointed as a visiting fellow in Delhi University to give lectures in 3 of the university's departments, philosophy, psychology, and Buddhist studies. In 2011, Indira Gandhi National Open University recruited him as one of the chief experts to design the syllabi for BA and MA courses on the Tibetan studies as a part of the Indira Gandhi National Open University program. While assigned with the responsibility of the directorship of Tibet House, Cultural Center of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, New Delhi, he also gives regular lectures in Tibet House and many other places like universities and institutes. He also travels widely within India and abroad, like Mumbai, USA, UK, and Singapore, to teach Buddhist philosophy, psychology, logic, and practice. Thank you, Geshe-la. Now I'll give the floor over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nizam. Thank you so much. And also Venerable Dr. Dhamma Biaji and Mr. Abhijit Halder, Director General, and Mr. Sriang Chule, and Mr. Pant, the Professor Pant, who I have a tremendous regard for his scholarships and contribution to the humanity in the academic field. So it is a great honor that I'm being a part of this talk series organized by through India, the birthplace, the place where the Buddha became enlightened, and the place where the Buddha turned the 3 turns, the turnings of Dharma. So with this in mind, today, why I chose to go for this for life, particularly amongst youth in this digital world or digital era, is for the reason that that the number of the youngsters, number of the people in general, and the youngsters in particular, going through stress. This is really incremental, exponentially increasing. It's for this reason that this topic, which in fact, or the illness, which in fact is what is well being addressed by the Buddha 2,500 years ago, and later commented upon by the great number of the masters from the Nalanda Monastic University, as well as from Takshashila, Vrigamlashila, Uttandapuri, and so forth. We see that these treasures, only if we retrieve them and apply them in our life and disseminate them in the minds of the youngsters, only then we can see the possibility that these problems can be curbed. So with this in mind, yeah, the next slide. Full thumb. Okay, so here the next slide. So we talk about this problem. It's not just that it's like an individual problem of the individual person, individually youth. This is what is recognized as the problem by the UNO, the Sustainable Development Goals. Everywhere in the world, we talk about the SDGs all the time, and also known as the global goals, were adopted by all United Nations member states in 2015 as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity by 2030. So the idea is that there's acknowledgement that the world is going through a crisis where there's a lack of mental peace, lack of prosperity, and this is what is acknowledged there. So because of this, it is so crucial to look for solutions. The next slide. So if you look at this, at the 17 SDGs, we see that the number 3 is about the well-being, to ensure the well-being for all the beings, for all the citizens of the world. What do you mean by well-being? Oftentimes, people see the well-being as a material well-being, where people have enough to eat and people have, say, the good health, just physical good health. Is this the meaning of the well-being? Again, this is not. We need to keep in mind the deeper implications of the problems. Next slide. So, WHO and the well-being. A state of how the well-being is defined by WHO is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So we see that there is the great implication of the mental well-being, a stress-free, anxiety-free. Nowadays, we see that there are more and more number of people having, for no reasons, anxiety issues, and of course, going to depression. And to a great extent, I would say that it can be it is due to the globalization of the digital world. So this is the main reason. And in fact, it was like many years ago when I was just a young child, where Japan was extremely developed pertaining to the digital world. And I learned that in Japan, the number of the people who are losing jobs, who become unemployed, it's exponentially increasing. Why? Because the human beings, we have to acknowledge these realities. And of course, I'm supporting all these with the help of the materials provided by UNO, WHO, and so forth. And that so while there's a tremendous development, materially speaking, digitally speaking, and now look at the social media, it's so fast. In those days, Japan was very advanced. And because of this, the reality that we have to keep in mind that the people are thinking. Finally, you have a good job, you are in demand, or you are not in demand. They're all determined by your thought process. So if you're very smart, of course, you're born in a very simple family, but the big companies will just pick you up and give you such a huge salary, and eventually you can become the CEO of the company. Whereas it's not the case with everybody, that there are many whose, they say, the thought process, the cognitive thought process is not as fast, is not as smart as some of these people. So in other words, overall speaking, our cognitive, the thought process, cognitive activity of the mind in terms of the sophistication, it was much more the same as what was like 2,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago. But materially speaking, digitally speaking, we see that the world is developing exponentially. Just, you can't believe it. So in other words, our natural talents or our natural skills or our natural potential, the potencies, they cannot really match with the advancement in the digital world. Because of which, naturally, our mind is lagging behind. And then, and of course, this also forbids the youngsters from displaying their, the nurturing their natural, the capabilities or the natural instincts, like socializing. The fact that the digital world is so developed that a child usually has to go out, play with other children. Now they just prefer to be at home, locked in by themselves, and just with the gadget, and spending hours and hours and hours. So which means that the child is deprived of nurturing the skills, the talents, and the factors required for the human beings as a social animal to survive. Naturally, what is happening now, and the natural gift of the evolutionary, the skills or the instincts that we have, there's a total clash happening there. And this clash is manifested in the form of anxiety, in the form of stress, and eventually in the form of depression. So what is the solution for this? This is the question. This is a huge matter that the UNO, WHO should be dealing with, as well as the internationally and nationally. This must be addressed. And of course, everywhere, this is what is being, the attempt has been made to look for solutions for this problem. The next slide. Okay, so this problem, again, I'm not bringing from, let's say, the Buddhist sources. So this is universal problem. And in fact, that anybody who has a sense of concern for yourself, for your family, for your children, for the world, they should be very serious with this problem. So look at what Albert Einstein has to say about 100 years ago. So what he said is that this problem that we face, so where lies the root? He says, the human being is a part of the whole, called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He or she experiences himself, his thoughts and feeling as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. So just imagine, this was what Albert Einstein said during his time when he was in his 40s, 50s, which is almost like 100 years ago. And so he said, he was talking about the separating oneself from the rest of the world. And today, the digital world so effectively does this for the youngsters. So what happens in this process? It creates a prison for the individual, the prison, which is a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness, optical delusion, just as feeling that I'm independent, I don't depend on other people, while the evolutionary theory indicates that we are all social animals. We cannot survive by ourselves. We can't be independent. We are all dependent on other factors. Next slide. And to read it further, it says, this delusion is a kind of a prison for us. Yes, indeed. So when you're with the gadget, when the child is with the gadget, the child is just lost there. The moment child goes out, does not know how to go out,
feels that you are just imprisoned within your own self. And this is what Albert Einstein said 100 years ago. Just imagine that, restricting us to our personal desires and affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. So what he is saying is that just break the optical delusion and widen the circle of your compassion towards others by embracing other creatures, other beings. So here, what should we do? In fact, this digital world, while it has incredibly great benefits, but there must be some control on the national level, on the family level, and so forth, that the children, they're not deprived of nurturing the basic instincts of the human beings as a social animal. So there, how to expand the circle of compassion. This is something so unique, and I would say that Buddhism, the Buddha's teachings, has a tremendous potential to render service in this the front, to how to expand the circle of compassion, to embrace all of the living creatures. This is exactly what the Buddha came on this earth to shower the message. The next slide. Okay, so all these problems, now the stress, anxiety, even the people in 40s and 50s, for no reason, they could feel the stress, anxiety attack. And the younger ones, yes, of course, I really feel so empathetic when I see them, that they're so trapped in the digital world. It is not their fault. It is not their fault. While the technology, science and technology is developing tremendously, such on a great pace, and there must be the nations and the WHO and even the family members, the families, they also should be able to catch up at the same pace as how the science and technology is developing, for the reason that science and technology, while it develops so much, and then it simply throws all these gadgets and all the facilities, and the children, poor children, if you don't know how to manage this, then the poor children, they simply get lost in this, and then they're deprived of deprived of nurturing the skills of socializing with the community. So just imagine all the anxiety and stress. How do they arise? Just think of a sound of a clap. It's a very simple example, sound of a clap. So sound of a clap should necessarily come into being by the two hands coming together. Likewise, this stress the young children they're facing, even today, people in 40s, 50s, 60s, I come across many of them for no reason, they getting to have anxiety attack. It's a severe problem, and there's exponential rise in this problem. So all these problems, we need to look for the source rather than looking for just the treating the symptom symptomatically. So what is the source? Just think of the sound of clap, which is a metaphor for the stress, anxiety, depression, so forth. And how does this arise? Sound of clap should arise by the combination of two hands. So likewise, we see that the stress and so forth, we see that there are like two factors. One, external factors like the digital advancement, all these social media and everything moving so fast. You don't really have to go for shopping nowadays. Everything you do from sitting inside your room, and then you do the gadget work, and meanwhile you just order your food or groceries and anything. You do that. In fact, it simply cuts you from, or in other words, you may feel that this is a great opportunity. In the older times, people did not have this privilege. If they don't have the salt in their home, then what they do? They have to go to the neighbor to ask for salt. And today, forget about salt. Even with the major issues, they just they click the button and then they place order, and it just come on the door, to your door. So this is what it is, and by no means this is good. And you are thinking, most of the people think that, wow, this is a great thing for us, that we are living in the 31st century where everything is digitized, where everything is they're done through the pressing some buttons, and there's nothing good in it. What is the outcome? In short, the outcome is stress, anxiety, and depression. And when it becomes so chronic, then eventually untimely passing away. This is the point. So the point is, we need to look for the root. And the root, as I said earlier, there are two things. One is the external factors, and the other one is the internal factor. Internal speaking, as a human being, we can't say that we are superior to the human beings 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. We're the same human being, same emotional limitations, so same emotional vulnerabilities. We are the same human beings. Externally, yes, we know more sophisticated language. We know how to press the buttons and bigger things. In those times, if you give the gadget to them, they have no clue what to do with this. This doesn't mean that you're more sophisticated. This is what you've learned. But as the natural skills, the talents, we are just the same. By no means we are superior to those. I say it takes millions of years to bring about genetic changes, to bring about, as a change in your brain, change in your, say for example, say the animals versus the Homo sapiens. There is the new brain developed. It took millions of years to bring to this development of their brain. Likewise, changing the genes will take millions of years. So it's not just 1,000 years, 100 years, 200 years. No, we are, in other words, what I'm saying is that we are just the same person with a very fast pace on the technology, science, technology, and the digital world. This is, so we cannot really catch up with this. When you cannot catch up, then it manifests in the form of stress, anxiety, and so forth. So we need to deal with, say, we need to know where's the root and fix it, and the solution to these problems. We don't have to look for externally. It is already there, which we learned, which the great teachers in the context of Buddhism, the Buddha came 2,500 years ago and gave all these amazing, brilliant insights. And today, for people to reach to that level of the advancement of the psychology, is beyond imagination. We can't imagine that happening. And likewise, I say the great teachers like Krishna, again came up with the Gita. Is amazing. Like Prophet Muhammad, like Mahavir, Baha'u'llah, Lord Jesus Christ, and Abraham, and so forth. And then Guru Nanak. These are just amazing teachers. So it is high time for us today, particularly what we say that they should have proper planning on the part of the WHO, on the part of the nations, to look for solutions which are actually rendered there in the various different traditions, ancient wisdoms. The next slide. Okay, so the point, what I said is that these problems, the root of the problem lies in your thinking, in your mind, internal problem. So for this matter, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, this is also what I'm going to touch a little later. His Holiness, as early as 20, 30 years ago, wherever His Holiness travels to the world to give public addresses, experts from different disciplines, like social activists, social workers, medical experts, educationists, and so forth, they ask one question to His Holiness. While the modern education is climbing such advancement, which is all intended for the greater peace, harmony, prosperity of the world, the people of the world, but the peace is going down. People are suffering more problems happening. Where are we going wrong? So His Holiness, without second thought, as early as like 25, 30 years ago, His Holiness said, it's all because that we lack to pay attention to our inner development. We only focus on the external development. For this matter, His Holiness is so keen that the map of the mind, how the internal world, inner world must be researched, must be explored, the inner world of the mind. And this, his own calls as the map of mind. And at one point, as Dr. Nilsamala, during my introduction, she explained about this and the textbook committee. In fact, it was first, His Holiness first, they shared this, instructed me that we need to come up with this the textbook, all compiled from the direct teachings of Buddha and the direct teachings of the Indian masters of the past, Nalanda Monastery University. And then later on, a bigger committee was formed, and later on, these 60 scholars, monk scholars, experts in philosophy, logic, psychology, they were all recruited, and then all the materials from the original sources, sutras, and from the shastras. So these were gathered. So here I have presented there the map of the mind, the book which His Holiness were inaugurated. This was actually purely His Holiness's vision, and they actually put in the effort by the 60 scholars. Later on, they further compiled into book form by 5 scholars and with a few chief editors. So the sources are the first one, 110 volumes in Tibetan of the Buddha's own teachings, referred to as sutras. Then the shastras, meaning the commentaries by the Indian masters, about 230 volumes in Tibetan. And then the end, to go a little more down about the map of the mind, we see them very clearly in the Abhidhamma Kosh by Acharya Vasubandhu, the 5th century, the AD. And then Abhidhamma Samuchaya, the Acharya Vasubandhu, the elder brother, and then Visuddhimagga. This is very interesting. This is likewise highly, the qualitative book by Acharya Buddhaghosa, and this is from the Theravada side. So these are all extremely great treasures of the human mind. And later, this compilation, at the moment in English, it came into 2 volumes. So both of them are already available in the market and already launched by His Holiness Dalai Lama. And this will be very helpful for us to impart these legacies to the youngsters, so that instead of always getting holding on to getting glued to the gadgets, why not we get hold of these 2 books and make sure that we develop our mind to explore the internal world rather than exploring the external world all the time. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is that map of mind consisted of? There's at Tibet House, we compiled this book. We compiled this book on the map of the mind. And of course, in the end, all these huge materials, which I indicated earlier, 110 volumes of the direct teachings of Buddha translated into Tibetan, and more than 230 volumes of the texts, the commentaries by the Indian masters of the past Indian masters from the Nalanda University. So these from these studies, I compiled all of them and put them into the form of, the outlines. And we have identified 24 very important the study of the psychology aspects to supplement or to make the already existent the popular psychology, Buddhist psychology books available in the big monastery universities. So this is where we need to study, to explore what is inside us. And to make things very easy here for today, so basically, when I speak about the map of the mind, it's about how our mind works. For example, let's say that somebody, let's say that you're by yourself. If somebody takes you for, say, a holiday, and you are given a separate room, what's your problem? You have a problem. You say that I'm lonely. Then when you put with somebody else, you say that I have no privacy. This is a very simple example. This is a very simple example, and this is exactly the problems everywhere in the world. When your mind when you don't explore the internal world of the mind, then you cannot really stop the problems. For example, let's say that if you have your own house, your problem, maintenance problem. If you don't have a house, you envy those people who have the house. And if you have helpers, you have a problem. Oh, the helper is not loyal, is not coming on time. And if you have no helpers, you envy those people who have the helpers. Everywhere is a problem. And if you are the boss, you have a problem. People do not listen to me. And if you're not a boss, you have a problem. My boss is very egoistic. There is always some problem. It's not a problem of the world, it's a problem of your thinking. So for that matter, we need to explore the internal thinking, which is called as the map of the mind. So for that, it's about how a mind works. Now, just if you can change, if you can just make a shift in your thinking. So where you're put in a room by yourself. Wow, I'm so glad I have privacy rather than I'm lonely. And if you put it with somebody else, oh, I'm so glad that I'm not lonely. I'm not lonely. I'm so happy. So we see just change the shift in you bring about a shift in your thinking and your problem is fixed. So you don't have to get rid of the gadgets. You don't have to get rid of the digital world. Let us not go back to the age of the barbarism where nothing is there. Digital world, the technology, they are so important, so good for us. But we need to keep in mind that just as technology is good, we should be good in exploring the internal world as well. These two must go hand in hand. So how to explore the internal world is, first of all, to explore how the mind works. What happens to me when I become stressed? What happens to me when I become happy? And what are the factors which are responsible for the happy state of mind? What are the factors responsible for the unhappy factors, the unhappy state of mind? So there, in the Buddhist psychology, there is the mention of what is known as the mind and the mental factors. And the mental factors, let's say, according to the very general presentation of the Sanskrit tradition, there are 51 mental factors. And according to the Theravada tradition, they identify 52 mental factors. It's just a matter of how you identify them. It's much more the same. It's the same teaching of the same great teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. So from this, I like to go directly to the first the set of the 5 ever-present mental factors in order to explain how to address the stress problem, today's stress problem, and how the stress comes into being, and how stress can possibly be gotten rid of. So I'm going to work on this just for information, and of course, in order to really deal with this, we need a plethora of the information about the map of the mind, for information, I'm just giving you what these film mental factors are: 5 ever-present mental factors, 5 object discerning mental factors, 11 virtuous mental factors, 6 primary afflictions, 20 secondary afflictions, 4 variable mental factors. And of these, I'm going to explain how stress, peace of mind, ease, and guilt, unease, all these things, they arise on the basis of the first set, 5 ever-present mental factors. So what are the 5 ever-present mental factors? There are 5 there. We see how the mind works in a very cursory form. We see that the mind, the means for the object. For example, let's say that I'm so fond of apple juice. And the last 2 years, because of COVID lockdown, I didn't get the opportunity to have apple juice. And today, after the opening up, where the COVID subsides, then for the first time, I'm getting apple juice. The moment I see the apple juice, okay, this says from the apple juice. But for some people like alcohol, some people like drugs, some people like anything you're addicted to, money, bribery, corruption, Or let's say your mother, meeting with your mother, meeting with your father, and the meeting with a very close friend, and so forth. So for this, what happens first, your mind should have contact with the object. The first one is contact. So with the contact, what happens is that you pay attention. The mind has the ability to pay attention. Number two. Number three, depending on the sophistication of your attention, then the number three, the differentiation happens, oftentimes translated as discrimination happens of the object. Oh, this is my mom, this is my dad, this is the apple juice, oh, this is the money that I'm getting through the wrong means. Or, okay, this is the clean money that I'm getting, white money that I'm getting out of my the hard work. Or say, this is the, okay, I'm getting this position. I'm getting a promotion. So there you get a sense of discernment or the discrimination that what is, what is not. And then on that basis, this discrimination or differentiation, that mental factor, then they triggers a set of feelings within you, pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling. And this feeling, in case, if the feeling that is triggered within you is a pleasant feeling, naturally you have the intention to embrace this present feeling. For example, say for me, of course I don't like juice so much, but then for these talks and teachings, I need a little bit of energy. So the moment I see this juice, a pleasant feeling comes to me. A pleasant feeling comes in me. So with a pleasant feeling, I want to have the pleasant feeling. And what triggers this pleasant feeling? This juice is of the trigger. So actually I'm meant to embrace this pleasant feeling, but I embrace the juice because this juice is the one which gives me the pleasant feeling. So I take it. This is the intention to embrace the object which triggered the pleasant feeling. These are the five, the ever-present mental factors. Some people translate this as omnipresent mental factors. It can be, I always try to stay away from using theological words which were once being used in the theology studies, not to mix up the two things, because this is a pure knowledge, information. It's nothing to do with theology. So this says how the mind works. Now, let's say that it was, I think it was 2 years ago, during the peak of the COVID. My friends in Italy, usually they invite me for the teaching tour in Italy, and during the COVID 2020, they could not, nobody could travel, so they organized online teaching. And after the online teaching, then one lady from the participants raised her hands and said that your talk about how to create happiness in your mind is so it's so pleasant to hear, but the ground reality is very different. That the moment I go upstairs on the terrace, and from there I look down, usually I see the street, a very busy street there. Now the street is totally empty. It's so gloomy. It's so, it makes you feel so down. So how can I bring happiness? How can I bring happiness in my mind, seeing this very, the gloomy and totally the street, empty street? How should I deal with this? So I said that, are you serious that the street is empty? And she said, yes, it's very gloomy, it's completely empty, nobody's there. So there, just imagine, think of these 5 points. The contact, her mind, her eye consciousness came in contact with the empty street. Then she paid attention to this. Usually it's very busy. Now it's so empty, nobody's there. So she paid attention, and the discrimination came that it is empty. It is so, feeling so sad, to make me feel so down, so low. Okay, that the feeling is unpleasant feeling. And she doesn't want this unpleasant feeling. And what should we do now? She doesn't want to feel unpleasant. what should she do? So that is to push that trigger which triggered this unpleasant feeling. What is the trigger? Say the empty street. So the feeling aversion to the empty street happens. So where is happiness? So if you look at this, tell me, she feels averse to this empty street, intention to push away, run away from this the empty street. Why? Because she get unpleasant feeling when when seeing the empty street. And what made her feel the unpleasant feeling? Get this unpleasant feeling because of the differentiation, because of the discrimination that this is empty street and it's very boring to see that. It's very sad to see that. So the differentiation, and differentiation because of attention, and the attention because of context. That's fine. But the most important thing is the key lies in the fact that when you see the empty street, what do you want? You want to empty street. You cannot avoid it. This is the reality. But you have a choice whether you will have a pleasant feeling to see the empty street or unpleasant feeling to see the empty street. If you get a pleasant feeling to see the empty street, you have the intention to embrace this. If you have unpleasant feeling, if you go for the unpleasant feeling upon seeing the empty street, then your mind will push, intention to push the sight. So whether you have the pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling, that is in your head. A street, empty street, you cannot do anything for the time being. So what should we do? Wise people will think of how to fix inside, how to change the feeling inside, how to change this feeling from unpleasant feeling to the pleasant feeling by changing the differentiation. How to change the differentiation? This is the key. This is the key. Then I told her that, wow, is it true that the street was really empty? And she said, yes. What is the time? The time is when it is at the peak of the COVID. And she said, yes. Okay. So if I were you, climbing at the terrace, on the terrace, looking down in the empty street, I'll be feeling so happy. I'll be feeling so grateful. And she said, why? Because empty street means usually those people who actually fill this street, make it so crowded. These people, they're telling you that don't worry about COVID for you. We'll not spread COVID for you. We'll not come to the street. We'll all stay in our respective home. So you just stay in your home peacefully, have no fear of COVID. No fear COVID will knock at the door because we're all away from the street. Wow, that's amazing. That's true. I'm so scared of the COVID. And these people, they're in a way telling me, don't be afraid. We'll all stay away from you. That COVID will not come to you. Wow, I should be feeling so grateful. So just tell me that when you see this empty street as a message to you by the people who otherwise fill this street every day, the message that don't have no fear of the COVID. We are not coming on the street. We are all in our house, in our respective house. So just take calm, peaceful. When you think like this, what is the feeling? Naturally, it's very peaceful, very happy, very pleasant feeling. And likewise, when I said, okay, so the COVID is very scary and people can bring the COVID, but the people, they are not coming to you. What is the feeling? Very pleasant feeling. So this pleasant feeling you want or you don't want? You want it. And who gives this pleasant feeling to you? Empty street. Who gives the empty street? People who do not otherwise fill this street with full, and now they don't come to the street. You feel so grateful to the people there. You feel so happy to see the empty street, and your feeling is extremely beautiful and pleasant. You like this pleasant feeling or not? You like it. You embrace this. You not complain it. So this is how, by changing your cognitive thought process with differentiation, that the feelings can be changed, and because of which you are the intention to push away or to embrace, that is that comes to existence. So whereas when your intention tries to push away the object, then it has to force itself. That is known as disturbance. So that disturbance, immediate disturbance is seen as stress. And then this intensified, it is anxiety. And then becomes chronic, it becomes depression. So stress, anxiety, and depression, they're all connected to each other. So this is how we can fix it. Next. Okay, now this is a very important point. We talk about discrimination or the differentiation. How to change this differentiation. These are all the legacies. These are all the wisdoms left by the great masters, Indian masters, and the Buddha himself 2,500 years ago. So how to change this discrimination, cognitive thought process of your mind, the discrimination, how to change this, to change your feeling from the unpleasant to the pleasant feeling. This is so important. And when you go through acute depression, what do? We seek the help of the psychiatrist. And what do psychiatrists do? They give you the antidepressants. And antidepressants, they will numb your brain. They will numb your neurons. And then they will numb your positive thoughts, negative thoughts altogether. Whereas this wisdom will give us how to numb our negative thinking and how to make active our positive thinking. This is extremely precious, the precious information given to us by our forefathers. So for this discrimination, when we speak about discrimination, the cognitive thought process of our mind, so it involves two things. One is the subject, your own mind, which is thinking, which is discriminating, or which is cognitively active. And then cognitive active with respect to the object. So the subject object involved there. So by bringing about your perception of the object, bring about change in the perception of the object, change the subject happens. By bringing about change in the purely subjective attitude, again, the state of the mind is changed. So the past, the legacies attempt to teach us how to bring about change in your perception of the subject, in your perception of the object, and tackle these two directly, that your discrimination is fixed. On this basis, your feeling is so euphoric. Your feeling is so beautiful. And you don't have to numb your brain with the help of the antidepressants. So how to bring about change the subject and the object? The next slide. Okay, not the change the subject and object, change your perception of the object and the subject. The first, the subject. So I'm going to do it a little quickly here. I've only about 8 minutes now. The subject, it is through, say, a deliberate, there are various practices, say, keep aside your gadgets, stay away from these gadgets, and give yourself time, be kind to yourself, and be wisely kind to yourself. Give yourself time. In fact, I remember it was like almost 17 years ago when I was first translating for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and I first had the mobile phone. And this mobile phone, on the one hand, it was very useful because there are so many people who would contact me for help, and I'm so glad that I'm able to, do some. They give some help to somebody through this mobile, and they say very busy, very busy. Then on Sundays, the only day that I was free, on Sundays, that I would keep the mobile here in case if there are emergency, the calls, I would pick up, and I do my practice, meditation, prayers. Then instantly it rings. Again, I pick up the phone, and sometimes they're really the urgent works are there. Otherwise, the main like company calls, all these things are coming there. And then I thought, okay, the weekdays is fine. I'm just giving my time wholly to the people. But now even on Sundays, only day that I'm free, even for that, I don't get time for my own personal practice. So now at least for the next 2-3 hours, I have to switch the mobile off. So I switched off the mobile. You wouldn't believe the moment I switched off the mobile, my mind into my prayers, meditation, it just goes instantly very deep. I was so fascinated. So therefore, what I'm saying is that we should be kind to yourself by the continuous doesn't mean that staying away from the gadget. One vice chancellor of a university, when we invited him for a talk, he said something very pertinent and extremely, what he said is very true. He said, nowadays people early morning, when they could not find a mobile, they go into depression. They couldn't find the mobile, they're in depression. Otherwise, it should be the opposite. When you don't find the mobile, you should see that, okay, now I have every excuse not to attend to the calls because I don't find the mobile. You should be free from depression. Instead, it's the opposite. Look at this. The people, they start to be depressed. Oh, where's my mobile? They start to panic. They become frantic. This is how they are being so unwise. How they are being so unkind towards themselves. So let us be kind towards ourselves. Kind to ourselves by staying away from the gadgets, at least for one day. At least for one day, or if not whole one day, at least for a few hours a day. Do that, and then you won't believe that there's a self-growth happening. Internal assessment is happening. All these wonderful things happen, and then you can study these things. How to bring about change in the perception of the subject. How to bring about the attitude, how to bring change in the attitude of subject, how to bring change in the perception of the object. So for the subject, let's say one is to observe your own mind. Of course, there are some other practices like your walking meditation, observing the breath, observing the sensations, so forth. And one thing which is extremely profound alongside these is just observing your own mind. Just observing the mind when there's light, how your mind behaves. When it is dark, how your mind behaves. When you're angry, how your mind behaves. When you're calm, how your mind behaves. When you meditate, how your mind behaves. Just observe the mind. This is a very powerful meditation. This will instantly bring about the cooling of your mind. This is, again, a great therapy for your mind. That's one part. And then that requires, let's say, dedicating some amount of time observing your mind. Not just 2 minutes, 3 minutes. First, many sessions, but short sessions, many sessions. Eventually, say longer session, less number of sessions, but longer. One session, it could like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Not now. Beginners, not more than 3-4 minutes. Okay, so this is one part. And if you are very serious with part, this could be a very exciting exercise and very exciting meditation. And for this, you must seek the help of teachers. Don't do it by watching YouTube. Okay. The next part is how to bring about change in the perception of the object. For example, let's say a person just knocks at the door, and you think that how barbaric, how uncivilized the person is, not knowing how to knock at the door gently. And if the person, after knocking the door, you say, come in, and a person comes in, if it so happens that it is your brother who you lost the last 12 years or 15 years, and both of you love each other so much, and then instantly your attitude changes. Because the object, you earlier thought that it was just an unknown person, and who is totally uncivilized, and now you say it's somebody who you love so much, instantly that unpleasant feeling changes to pleasant feeling because it changes perception of the object. So how to bring about change in the perception of the object, that plays a very important role. And I've given a few tips there. One, to see things in relative terms, the relativity of the qualities. They're so important, so important. And of course, we can go in more detail, but I've only 2 minutes more. And in fact, the first one is extremely helpful. And first one. Okay, for example, let's say if you eat an orange, some of you may see that it is sour. Then you take a lemon, and then you take the same orange. You will see that the orange is so sweet. This is experiential. So from this, we see that everything has two frames of reference. One which is inferior to that, one which is the superior to that. When you feel low, look at the inferior, you'll feel uplifted. When you feel inflated, when you feel egoistic, look at the upper, you'll feel deflated. Okay, this is how we can maintain the calmness, and this is very powerful practice. The number 2 is different perspectives into others' shoes. Okay, this is what most people do. Broader perspective of time. This is again a very important thing. Broader perspective in time and space. So, for example, okay, so some people, believe it or not, nowadays I don't know, but in olden time, yes. Say people, they have to catch a bus, and it's a 5 minutes drive. Catch a bus, and in the bus, people just crowd themselves and they fight for the seat. They fight, literally, they fight for the seat. And the seat is for what? For 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, what's the difference? They see the 5 minutes as so like very long time. 5 minutes is nothing. Give the seat to somebody else. What's the problem? So whereas you see just 5 minutes as the whole world, whole time, then your mind cannot resist. You will fight. Whereas if it's 5 minutes, it's just like the split of it's just like a finger snap. It disappears. Then you will not fight. As sensible people will never fight for 5 minutes drive seat for 5 minutes distance. So, whereas if you can see things from a very broad perspective from space and in time, we see that our investing so much time in fighting, the ruminating over the past, maybe bad incidents and so forth, this are all meaningless. And you see that your mind is at calm and peace. This is so beautiful. Then the challenges as opportunities. Again, to see the challenges as not challenges, but as opportunities for you to grow. Everybody has to grow. Everybody has to grow. For growth, we need the challenges. For example, mathematics. When we study mathematics, there's what is known as the mathematical problems. So teachers, they give you problems. Problems mean challenges for you to grow. It's not to put you into trouble. So, where people can take the challenges as opportunities, they grow. Where people feel the challenges, opportunities as challenges, then they will go into depression. So you want to go into depression or you want to go grow? That's how you look at things. To see challenges as opportunities or to see opportunities as challenges. That's in the hand. And then mutuality of dependency. And then so there are many points. Let's go quickly. The next slide, please. Okay, next slide. This is mutuality dependency. Everything is dependent on each other. Yeah. And for example, let's say the tribal people. So these are from the people of the different tribes of the Amazon forest. And these people, what they said was that before the Amazon was put to fire, these tribes, they were fighting against each other. All these thousands of years. Once the Amazon was put on fire by the government, then these people from the different tribes, they become united because they see that there's a common threat to them. They become united to fight against a common threat. So this is because they see that they are mutually dependent. So when you see that they are mutually dependent, one tribe cannot fight the government, but all the 40, 50, 60 tribes put together, they can fight against the government. So this is a mutuality dependency. Next slide, please. And the subjectivity, how we see things, how we see things. This is a very profound topic. How we see things. For example, say a glass of juice. The same glass of juice can be seen as, say, the electrons, a bunch of electrons, protons, neutrons. So, and both perceptions are true. But when you see as the glass of juice, there's a temptation can come, or anger can come if you are severely diabetic. Whereas if you see it's just a bunch of electrons, protons, neutrons, which is another perspective, the anger or the attachment subsides. Next slide. Next slide. So this is a very important point about quantum mechanics. Go back. Quantum mechanics about changing the perception of the reality object. perception of the object. In other words, subjectivity of the object. That subjectivity of the object, what you find in quantum mechanics, this is exactly what you find in the Buddhist philosophy. So quantum mechanics, it says that Niels Bohr, he said, if quantum mechanics, if you study quantum mechanics, and if you're not shocked by it, you have not understood it yet. Likewise, the Buddhist philosophy of the subjectivity, that nothing is objectively real. If you study this and goosebumps do not come to your body, which means that you have not understood it, you must be falling to nihilism. So where you understand in the subjectivity, like a dream, so well, instead of falling to nihilism, you feel the profound goosebumps, tickling sensation in the body to bring about transformation, the perspective of the object, and thereby bring about transformation in your mind, to make your mind stress-free, anxiety-free, and depression-free. The next slide. Okay, just another 5 seconds. Universal ethics for the world peace. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama, sensing that the world is going through crisis, the world is going through crisis because of this lack of the awareness of the internal world. So His Holiness is nowadays propagating this message, universal ethics for the world peace. So now it was actually launched in 2014 by His Holiness the Dalai Lama internationally, and under the caption "See Learning, Social, Emotional, Ethical Learning," under the Emory University, and Dr. Nilza Omar, she was also a part of that program in those days. Okay, so what I'm saying is that this is what His Holiness sees as a very important thing, where the UNO, where the WHO, where the governments of the respective countries and the respective states should take the initiative to lead the people to impart education of the heart, rather than focusing entirely on the education of the gadgets and the digital world. So both should be maintained. Okay, I'm not going to go too much into detail. If you want to study this more, yes, this is a very important, the legacy of His Holiness the Dalai Lama for the world. And while the world leaders today, they are all putting effort to fight against each other, His Holiness is the one who is making effort to bring the world together under the umbrella universal ethics for the world peace. The next slide. Okay, so this is what was said by the great Indian master, Bodhisattva Deva. He said that finally, just tackle your mind, the world is under control. If your mind is not controlled, you cannot control the world. Where would I possibly find enough leather with which to cover the surface of the earth? Yet wearing a tiny leather to cover the soles of the tiny 2 feet is the equivalent to covering the entire earth with it. Conquer the world by conquering your mind, by compassion and by the wisdom to see the interdependency. Next slide. Okay, 2 suggested readings: emotional awareness and the destructive emotions. The first by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Professor Paul Ekman, and the second was the proceedings of the Mind and Life Conference, where His Holiness the Dalai Lama presided over, and which was edited by Daniel Goleman. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Venerable Geshe Dorji Damdul, for the wonderful teaching. Now the floor is open for questions. So participants online, I request you to kindly raise your virtual hand if you have any questions for our teacher. Any questions from the audience? Okay, that's Saheli. Please go ahead with your question.
Please accept my pranam, Geshe-la. You just gave an example that about the brother came and knocked door and how we can change our perspective about the thing. But I have a question, like when someone is insulting us, whether it's someone we know, like our brother or relatives, or someone we don't know, how we are going to take that easily without feeling upset, or whether we don't have any idea why this person is behaving so negatively to you, and you really don't have proper understanding about the situation, but the person is kind of insulting you or behaving badly. In that case, how we are going to change our perspective regarding that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sahil. Thank you. This is a very practical question. Yes, we need to be very realistic. We need to be very practical. So what about somebody who deliberately come to create problem to you, insult you, and so forth? How to do with that? Okay, how to change this perspective? If you could remember from the PowerPoint presentation, there's one section which said that PowerPoint presentation. Okay, never mind. No, okay. So there we talked about say the challenges as opportunities. Challenges, opportunities. In fact, this is one of the greatest challenges in our life, where you are a very decent person, you're a very kind person, you're a very sensible person, and the other person takes advantage of you. Say that one time, I was in my 40s. Today I'm 55. Then I was in my 40s, and there was one gentleman who must be in his 70s, and who used to visit my office, and he saw that I was so busy at that time, and he wanted my attention. I was very busy, and he said, Geshe-la, can I ask for 2 minutes every day? Would you allow me to come to sit with you for 2 minutes every day? I said, okay, but his 2 minutes is going to be 1 hour, that's for sure. And then I was very busy with the office work. Then he said, he gave up, and he said, he started to pull my attention. Geshe-la, I'll go to Lodi Garden. I'll go to Lodi Garden, and you just tell me one word. What should I meditate? I was so happy he's going to leave now. I said, compassion. Then he left. He said, thank you. Again, he came back, said, Geshe-la, compassion works so good in Lodi Garden. It doesn't work in the traffic. So I said, what happened in the traffic? In the traffic, people cut. So they just jump the red light, they cut you. So compassion doesn't work there. Then I said that, okay, look, just think of this situation. Say this person might have, who jumped the red light or who cut you, this person might have a mother waiting in the hospital, where the doctor is not accepting the mother because the mother does not have money to deposit for treatment. And the son is to give the money, bring the money very quickly. Otherwise, the mother is going to have a severe problem there. So it must be the situation. So if you see that situation in that light, naturally you will empathize. You will help the person go before you. Or the situation can be that this person might have a very little daughter, age 4 or 5, in the kindergarten, in the nursery school, where all the children, they already left, taken away. They already taken away by the parents, and this young girl was waiting for the father to come to pick her up, and she was just sitting there so much in fear because she was left alone. And a father knows that this was a situation, he must be jumping there. If you know that this is a situation, you will be very happy to help him to go. So the point is that they just see to the situation. Don't always look that as a negative, number one. But what he said is right. Sometimes people deliberately create problems. Deliberately try to insult you. Under such issue, what should you do? Again, look for the root cause. What made this person do that? This person for sure will not do this to the Prime Minister of India, will not do this to your boss, right? Why this person is doing to you? Because of two reasons. One, the person must be thinking that you are not smart. That you are not smart, that he or she is what she's doing. You don't know what he or she is thinking and trying to do to you, number one. Number two, he thinks that you are weak. I can insult, I can abuse. So for these two reasons, one, that you're not smart, that this person does not know what I'm trying to do, that what kind of advantage that I'm going to take, or the abuse that I'm going to engage with. Number two, that this person is weak. So what should you do? Then knowing that these are two factors which may the other person to behave nastily against you. So you have to send a message to the other person that I'm not stupid, I'm smart. Number two, I'm not weak, I'm strong. What kind of message should you send? One, keep a distance. Keep a distance from this person. When I keep a distance, naturally the person will realize that okay, she already knows that what is my mind, that I'm not going to that I'm doing something, not good to the person. So she knows that already. She's smart. And then how do you prove that you are strong, not weak? Never show anger to the person. When you show anger to the person, anger is a sign of weakness. It is not a sign of strength. So what should you do? When you meet a person head on, just assume a demeanor as very normal. Hi, how are you? And then just ignore and leave. Don't show any anger, because anger is a sign of weakness. You've already kept a distance, which means that you know the other person is trying to abuse you. And as simple, when you know that, people behave in an angry form. So when you don't show anger, the person sees you as a very strong person. She already knows that what I'm trying to do, and yet she is very strong. She's not succumb to anger. So this is what the other person feels. The moment they feel that, the person will retreat. Then next time you get the opportunity to help the person, next person, every dog has a day. Next time it is your opportunity, it is your time, that you are in a better position, upper hand. Then instead of abusing the other person, help the other person to tell her this is what only the strong people can do, not the weak people. That even the dog, they will not attack somebody who is very elegant. Somebody who's weaker, the dog will attack. So likewise, when you become stronger, other person weaker, if you attack, it's just a sign of a weakness, not a strength. So instead of that, you help, and the other person will be shocked. There are so many such anecdotes. One time in a monastery, in a Tibetan monastery, there was the deputy abbot and the monks. So deputy abbot's job is to create discipline in a monastery. And there was one young monk, very rebellious young monk, very rebellious against the authority, and always creating problem to the the abbot. And one day the deputy abbot became sick, and he was hospitalized, and he was in need of blood donation. And the disciplinarian, made an announcement to all the monks that our deputy abbot is in need of blood donation. Anybody who likes to donate, please sign up your names. And believe it or not, the naughty, rebellious monk, he signed up first. And when the deputy abbot, when he recovered, he asked the disciplinarian. Disciplinarian told him that blood donation was being made. And then he asked for who are the people who donated blood. And in the list, the first came the rebellious monk. And this deputy abbot started to cry, sensing that he is not a bad monk. Only thing is that he's against authority. So this is when this young monk could have easily been even more rebellious, could have rejoiced that the deputy abbot is now ill, hospitalized. But instead of that, he jumps to hell. So this is the sign of strength. This is what we can do. In other words, taking the challenges as opportunities for one to grow. Thank you. Okay, Mr. K.K. Pandeji.
Yeah, am I audible? Yeah, Namaskar Bhante ji. Yeah, I want a very small advice from you. Anger is also a mental state. Anger is also a mental state. I particularly, in my case, I want to know how to control anger, especially from the spouse. Because
Okay.
I found in same situation, I am not angry to anybody else, but in the same situation, I used to be angry with my spouse. How we can get control over it? Please enlighten me.
Okay, Mr. Pandej, I really appreciate your question. You are very, very sincere in your thinking. That's true. It's not only you. Most of us, husbands, they show for small reasons. When the tea is not full, shouts. When the tea is full, shouts. Likewise, the wife towards the husband. When the tea is on the table, it shouts. When the tea is not on the table, it shouts. This is what happens to everyone, and I agree with you. Okay, so the fact is that they say a child will behave as very pampered in front of their parents, not in front of the school teachers, because the child feels the love of the parents. So because you love your wife, so you see small reasons. For small reasons, you feel angry towards the wife. Actually, it's the indication of your love. But the thing is that love can manifest in different forms. Love can manifest in, say, the catering to the needs of the other person, or it can manifest in the opposite form. Something small goes wrong, instantly can become exploded, can explode. So under such situation, what should we do? Say, one, it is said that according to the evolutionary theory, anger, attachment, fear, these emotions are considered as instincts which cannot be fixed. Whereas according to the Buddha, even these, what is referred to as instincts, can be changed. Now, how can we change this? So the point is that, let's say, for example, say that one time, I have a friend who is a professor, a very senior professor. One day, two of us met in a conference. And out of the conference, he said, Dorji, you must come to my house to stay with me for the next 3 days. Now, what is this? I came for a conference and I've already booked my own room, and he's in a way like dragging me to stay with him in his house for 3 days. And I was still confused. I said, no, I've already booked a room. He said, no, Dorji, you must come. He was insisting. And finally, I gave up. I gave in to him. And then I told him that, okay, so now since that I'm coming to your house, you have to tell your wife that I'm coming. And then he said, yes, okay. But he's not calling. I said, you must call. He said, no, I'll call him. I'll call him later. Then we were in the middle of the way. I again reminded him, hey, please call your wife now that I'm coming with you. And again said, okay, yeah, when I'm about to reach there, I'll call. About to reach there, I said that, okay, you have to call. Then he called. Dorji is joining us. And then when I reached the house, he's not going in front. He's my host. The host is going behind me. He's pushing me in front. And I thought, what happened? And he said, Dorji, go. So because he's a very senior professor, I obliged. And then I go. And the wife was standing just at the door, like a policeman like this. And then then I said, I called her name, the good evening, Mrs. A. Okay, not to disclose the, okay, to maintain privacy. Then good morning, Mrs. A. And she said, good evening. She said, good evening, Dorji. Just very serious. And then I thought, what happened? Okay, it may be her personality. Then I went, and then my professor followed me. He did not took me, right? I took him inside. Then I was just staying in the what is that? The living room. Then I called the professor, Professor Mr. Peter G. Okay, I'm just changing the name. Professor Peter G. Then the wife blasted, Dorji, he does not deserve this G. He is such a disloyal husband. Then I realized why he was dragging me. He was forcing me to come with him. Okay, so what I'm saying, and then what happened was that the professor, he could not find the wallet. And he was asking the wife, where's my wallet? Where did you keep my wallet? And the wife was saying, no, I don't know. And two of them, they had this time. And finally, the professor found the wallet somewhere. And she said, you kept the wallet there. And she said, no, I don't keep it there. Then I told the professor that you have already found the wallet. There's no need to fight, right? If you, the worst is the case that you lost the wallet altogether, somebody took it, this is the worst. You're so lucky that you found it. You give a hug to your wife rather than fighting with her. And tell her, oh no, we don't have to worry, it is there. Just say this, finish, the problem's over. Now the professor provoking the wife. And the wife is equally fighting, saying that, no, I didn't keep it, it's you who misplaced it. Is this the wife and husband, right? So I know that there's a great degree of affection between two of them. But this love and affection is manifested always in the form of fights. So this is unwise. So what we do is that, how long are we going to be together? If you are really loving and caring towards each other, maximum another 10, 20 years. After 20, 30 years, you want to fight, you cannot fight. You want to give love, you cannot give love, right? Your partner wants to give love to you, cannot give love, you're gone. She's gone, you're gone, right? So now while you are together, learn. So the point of being together is that, okay, we'll be together and then we fight every day. It's very exciting. This is not how you two of you came together, right? Oh, we'll have a very nice time. We'll have a good time together. So now just enjoy the moment. Every moment, enjoy this. Just feel that I'm so lucky that, I'm so lucky that she's helping me. And she should be helping, feeling so lucky that you are there to help her. So that way we should say, and then what? We never know whether tomorrow comes first or two of yours next day come first. We never know. Your next life comes first or tomorrow comes first. We never know. If that is the case, just imagine that if your partner is hospitalized after five days, let's say, how will you miss? You'll feel so sad. You'll feel so sorry that while those healthy days, I was showing unnecessary anger towards you, not towards others. Now I regret, I want to make you happy, but there's no way, I can't even come to the ICU now, right? So while you're together healthy, this is an opportunity for you not to fight, but for you to appreciate each other and love each other and help each other. This is how we do. Always keep in mind that our time together is so less. If that time together is 1,000 years, then you can fight and you can say that, okay, later, next 500 years, we will be happy together. For the first 500 years, we'll fight. No, we don't know whether tomorrow comes first or the next life comes first. We never know. So while together, being together, make sure that they keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Then you'll realize, okay, I will regret afterwards if I continue to show anger unnecessary. And I should learn how to show love and affection rather than show anger. Okay, one example that I like to give is that, say, if your wife, they ask you, okay, you went to the hospital and what is your pulse rate? You may say same what 14 per minute. 14 per minute means you're about to die, right? If you if you ask your wife and the wife says 14, actually it happened with let's say the 40, and she said 40, and you heard that as 14. Oh, it's 14. Oh, there's a health issue. We have to go to hospital. No. I said 40. No, you said 14, right? No, I did not say. I just said 40. No, you said 14. Why are you fighting? Instead of fighting, embrace her, hug her, give her a hug. Oh, I'm so glad it's not 14, it's 40. Then it's fine. I'm so glad that you're healthy, right? Oh, you said 14, right? What's the fight? That should be the factor for you to hug, not to fight, right? So it's up to why you are fighting. Why you are fighting? You said 14. Why? Because you don't want her to be sick. Why you don't want her to be sick? Because there's a love there. So this love, unwisely, it manifests in the form of fight. But wise people will manifest this in the form of hug, not fight. Good.
So because of the lack of time, and Geshe also has a class at 6 o'clock, so we should wrap up here. There are a few questions in the chat box as well, and we're really sorry. So now I request Professor Ravindra Panchi, Director IBC, to kindly propose the word of thanks.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Most Venerable Sangha members, Most Venerable Damdul Ji, Dhamma friends, participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, greetings and Namami from IBC. On behalf of International Buddhist Confederation, I feel privileged to present a vote of thanks, firstly, to Geshe for such an excellent presentation which he gave. Abhidhamma, or the Buddhist psychology, is such a in-depth psychology, and he has revealed the basis of that in such a good and simple way, and how it could be applied in our life. That is something Bhante, I want to thank you for it. And you have rightly said that well-being, the whole teaching of the Buddha is on the well-being. If we go back to the first discourse of the Buddha at Sarnath, where he talks about ill-being and well-being, he says, I teach that there is suffering and there is cessation of suffering. And you have rightly connected that from the modern time, how stressful conflict are all around us, and how when we become part of it, we start suffering. And you also brought out this point that it's up to us whether we react to it or we become an observer to it. And your presentation was so excellent. And I feel that all our participants got benefited, and especially Dr. K.K. Pandey, his practical question and your advice was so good. Once again, on behalf of IBC, I also would like to thank all our participants and the supporting staff who made this event a successful event. Once again, Geshe, thanks for joining in this Dhamma talk. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Thank you, Dr. Banji. Thank you, Dr. Nilza ji. Thank you so much. And thank you, Saurabh also. Thank you, the whole team of IBC. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Geshe-la. Thank you. Thank you all participants for joining us. For our future programs, kindly visit ibcworld.org and also our Facebook page, International Buddhist Confederation. Thank you and good night.